I have in the studio Andre Japamesa. He's a member of parliament for Sekondi. He also is a lawyer. Thanks for joining me, Andrew.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
How was your weekend? You did some constituency work?
Yes, I attended a funeral.
Funeral, yeah. It means you donated? Not really.
that goes as a matter of course, isn't it?
Logical. Yeah. It's by inference.
Absolutely.
Well, let's look.
And it's a cultural thing, really. I mean,
yeah, it's true. It's true. Once an elder, so to speak.
Absolutely.
You may be young, but you're an elder because of the position you hold. So
not necessarily because of the position, but I mean, it's cultural that when you go to a funeral,
you donate.
I make a donation to the bereaved family.
It's true. But for MP, you donate not less than 1,000 or 2,000.
Oh no, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
You tried. What has fascinated you over the last 24 hours, or let's say 48 hours? That's in the news media. Have you been monitoring so far?
Well, not exactly. I think it's appropriate that I say good morning to our cherished viewers this morning, particularly my constituent in Sekondi. There's been a lot happening over the weekend. His Excellency the President made some commitments to the Ghana Police when he commissioned the divisional headquarters that have been put up by the MP for Bekwai and the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, and that was exciting. That we are moving into a space where the police were going to be provided with equipment that will enable them to do proactive as opposed to reactive policing, and some logistics that they need to ensure that our safety is enhanced. Is being rolled out, and that was exciting. Of course, the NDC internal issues as well, with the former president making some comments, which I saw on social media yesterday evening, was something that was also, exciting and pretty interesting to listen to.
Yeah, pretty much an amusement for us also sometimes to ponder over, especially when you want to have a relaxing moment. The former president is always there to give you. But let's start our discussions premise on what the president has been saying about government's commitment to fight armed robbery and make sure that we have a seemingly serene state of security in our country. And as a result of that he said there's 4,000 more personnel will be enlisted into the Ghana Police Service to beef up security. And additionally, 8,700 CCTVs, so to speak, will be installed across the country. I found it quite fascinating, especially the latter about CCTVs, etc. What was the rationale, and how is that going to be rolled out in the first place?
Let me tell you my personal experience with CCTV cameras.
In Ghana?
No, in UK.
Fantastic.
In London, the safety and comfort that it provides, knowing very well that we are being watched, not necessarily it being intrusive, but the protection, because I was practically attacked in Easton. As a young student, we had gone out to have fun, and some white folks, rednecks, tried to attack me, and because there were CCTV cameras around, the security men in the nightclub saw it that I was being attacked outside, and they came to my rescue. Indeed, initially I was, not excited about what kind of country do that when you are walking around, cameras are watching you everywhere. But when I had that experience, and the speed with which the security men came out to rescue me from that attack, I began to appreciate the relevance and the importance of CCTV camera in providing public safety for our people. Over the years, we have not used technology that much, but of course, I believe that His Excellency the President has been properly informed that this is the way to go going forward. We hear of brazen attacks on our streets, and there's practically no evidence to track the perpetrators down. But if you look in the US, the school attacks that have been happening in the recent past, and the reliance on technology, including CCTV camera, to track down and arrest the perpetrators, tells us that, look, it's about time that we as a nation move in that direction. So if the president has made a commitment that some 8,700 will be rolled out this year, to address that challenge and to enable the police have a hands-on look on our streets and help them arrest criminals, then it is something worthy of commendation. And I think that this is something that we should all support. It is going to go a long way into helping the police, of course, with the complementary numbers that is coming as well. 4,000 personnel in a year is something that really tells us that, you know, His Excellency the President is committed to his statements that he's made to the people of Ghana, that is number one priority to ensure that we all feel and are safe in going about our daily business. So yeah, that I think is
well, in the more developed countries, and you spoke of your experiences in the UK, they seem to have the infrastructure for such devices to work. So that the structure is there. For us, we still have a very rural, almost like a peri-urban societal
I don't think so, because you and I know that internet penetration in this country is pretty much about 95%. And if 3 command centers are going to be set up to monitor and man these CCTV cameras, of course, and you know the nature of a command center. It's a huge structure with, you know, monitors monitoring each and every camera, and there'll be personnel dedicated and assigned to monitor these things, and of course with communication gadgets, with enhanced personnel on the street. If a crime is being committed on Fanofa Street and the command center in Accra sees that a crime is being committed here, can easily communicate to police personnel on the street to quickly intervene and prevent the crime and arrest the perpetrators. In any event, if they are not even arrested on the spot, their images would have been captured. And so I think that the infrastructure is available. Technology is readily available. It all boils down to the issue of funding. And if we have a president who has made a commitment to move in that direction, then clearly I expect that we'll put our money where our mouth is and commit the funds to ensure that these things not become white elephants, but that they are actually used for the benefit of the people of Ghana. And I do not have any doubt that that is the tangent that is present, His Excellency is going to go.
In a country where we remove, or even sometimes we disable transformers, we remove street lights, and then sometimes we remove cables, etc., in areas which are not monitored.
Well, but of course,
you will know that some of these, supposing they are in some rural area somewhere, they could definitely be tampered with.
But of course, if your images are being captured live, so if you go and remove the camera and your image is captured, then they can come after you and arrest you. Yeah, because as we speak, where they remove street lights and transformers, we do not have any monitoring devices. There are no CCTV cameras available. But if these come on stream, clearly, I do not think that anybody who is going to commit a crime of removing street lights, knowing very well that a third eye is watching him, will go ahead to do it. Because in any event, if you are able to take it away, you are captured on screen. The time that the offense was committed and everything is available. Of course, those who have CCTV cameras in their homes would appreciate the essence and usefulness of that device, and the fact that so long as you have storage space that is storing the recording, of course, you can always go back to monitor whatever activity that took place in your homes at all times. And so I think that it's a useful technology that we ought to necessarily deploy on our streets as a nation. And if His Excellency the President has committed to do that, it's only a matter of time that we can all confirm that indeed this thing has been done. And I've seen some pilot cameras on our streets. You know, the airport area, you see some driving on the way to Takrady after the Kaswa barrier. We see some placed all over. I believe that I think on the Temamoto as well. You know, so
Tetakwashi.
Yeah, Tetakwashi.
There's one around GBC. Too.
Absolutely.
It's used by the national security, I'm told.
Fantastic. So it's only an expansion of that program that would ensure our safety on the street.
Well, we may be currently saying that we need more personnel as well. But even with the addition of some 4,000, it's still just way below what the standards are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know that several factors go into recruitment into the public service, including the police. And thankfully, like I always say, governance is not an event, it's a process. I do not recall ever hearing or seeing that these numbers are being recruited in one budget cycle into the police service. And so if 4,000 personnel are going to be added to the numbers this year, I'm not sure those who will be going on retirement will be up to that number. And so that necessarily will lead to an increase in personnel on our roads. And I believe that as the years go by, some more personnel will be recruited next year and the year after to complement the numbers and work towards achieving the standards that we all know should be the optimum, which we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, but let's move on to a subject which seemed to have captured the imagination of many traders, especially freight forwarders and even local importers and exporters. And it's a subject of whether we've had rates as far as the freight is concerned on what it is. And members of the Importers and Exporters Association, they are expected to petition Parliament today over what they describe as a rising spate of import duties, and the association apparently wants government to reduce the import duties that they claim are burdening them. We've been speaking to Samson Asaki, who is the executive secretary of the association. He was speaking to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba.
About since on the 12th of this month, or since on the 1st of March, they have seen some kind of increase in duties in this country, in our port, especially in our port. I can show you a document, quite an example, that someone who cleared bicycles on the 12th of this month, the person cleared a 40-footer container containing bicycles. And when you look at it, the duty was 5% import rate, and the government introduced a 15% VAT on bicycles, importations, that is on VATs. And the duty alone became a 14,944 Ghana cedis that the person paid. This was on the 12th of March, 2018.
So the import duty alone was, yes, how much? 14,000.
14,000. Yes.
Okay. Now that was just last month, you're saying?
This month, I'm talking about this month, on the 12th.
On the 12th of this month.
I'll show you something.
Okay.
Yes. Now, before the ECOWAS Common External Tariff came into existence, there were no VAT on bicycle importers. VAT used to be 0. And so on the 12th of March, and the move, when CET came into implementation, we saw that they moved bicycle from 0% import duty as well, because import duty on bicycle was also 0. Import VAT on bicycles importation was also 0. But when CET came, they moved them to 20% import duty. So on the 12th, when we saw that, because we make complaints that bicycles we don't manufacture bicycles in this country, and so the excess of CET was that things that ECOWAS countries can produce more should be able to consume by ECOWAS countries or nationals, and so there's no need for us to bring import of those items, commodities. So there was a tariff increase on items that we can produce here within ECOWAS sub-region. I.e. rice, tomato paste, cooking oil, and stuff like that. They were moved. Rice was moved to like 10%, even though Ghana we were taking 20% import duty. But on the 14th, the same person went back to clear a container of commodity in the port. Then the duty rate became 20%.
From 5% to 20%.
And the duty became 24,512 Ghana cedis to be paid. Now, in this regards,
is it the same 40-footer container.
40-footer container.
Okay,
Same
and on the 12th, when the person cleared, it was 5%.
It was 5%.
And the person paid 14,000.
The person paid 14,000.
So 2 days later.
2 days later, it moved from
5% to 20%, and the person had to pay.
The person has to pay 24,000. Meanwhile, this person had gone to the importer to collect the duty because he has already known that he has already worked of some. I said, oh wow, government has done something about the duties. Meanwhile, on 2 days later, the duty shot up from 14,000 to 24,000. I'm sure you heard about the electrical people. They used to pay duty based on the length. Now, with this entrenchment position that the custom has taken, they are now calculated on weight, based on weight. Okay. And so because of that, even those who import electrical cables into this country are also crying. And I'm sure you heard the Gupta president when he was expressing the issue, because that is his line of businesses.
Now, yeah, some who are saying that since the introduction of the paperless system, that also partly is resulting in what you are describing as an increase, because previously, when you seek assistance from the, so-called Guru boys, the charges are down because, you're dealing with the Guru boys. But now that system is no longer in place and it's solely paperless. So
it's just paperless in the face of the value. But when you go on the ground to do business, it's not paperless. Custom, if an agent make an entry and it comes to CCTV comes, it goes to pay duty, December for compliance will come, and they will go and make request on the GCN system. The container is being positioned maybe at Golden Jubilee or at TCT. They get there. You have to carry every document. You have to make a photocopy of whether you have gotten approval from Standards Authority, whether you have gotten approval from FDA, whether you have gotten approval from EPA, whether you have gotten approval from Atomic Energy, whether you have gotten approval from MPA, and including the duty that you've paid. Meanwhile, whoever is at the field to do the examination, they have given them tablets. If you guess all what they needed, even they can use the agent who's going to clear the cargo ID card to enter into the system, and can even track what he's clearing on that day, and to know whether whoever has paid, how much he or she has paid as a duty, and we can. In the system, you can also see that, EPA, do you have something to do with EPA? Have they approved it? It's approved, it's there. Standards Authority is approved, it's there. Look, it's just one unique number code that you can just key it. But still, because the examination officer will still want to see some paper. So if someone tells you that there's paperless in the port, tell them that Mr. Asake says, no, there's no paperless in the port.
So Samson Asake is the Executive Secretary of the Import and Exporters Association of Ghana. But that also is at the center of the discussions currently. Today they want to go and petition Parliament on the subject. But it's something that we thought rather with the introduction of a new system and all the efforts being made, we'll see at least some end in sight to all the agitations by the freight forwarders, the importers and the exporters on this. It looks like that doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, listening to him, I guess that there's still some problems with the implementation of the paperless program. It's not surprising to me, because even 11 years after the change from Ghana, the cedi to Ghana cedi, people still refer to the old currency. I don't know what it is that the awareness that we have towards change. Because I'm a member of the Communications Committee of Parliament, and we've gone through some, briefing sessions with GCNet, GRA, giving us a briefing on the implementation of the paperless system, what it is that ought to be done. But listening to him, yes, the documents are on the system. People have tablets that they can make references to see that everything is ticked off. Yet, they still want to see paper trail before the functions are carried out. Makes you wonder. But I guess that it's only a year down the line that the system was rolled out. Let's see what it is that can be done to strengthen the enforcement of strict adherence to the paperless, so that we can get the benefits that we're supposed to derive from it. Because my understanding really was to enable, goods clearance from our ports much more faster than it used to be under the old system. So if people are still going through the old system of inspection, then it's a huge problem. But regarding the taxes bit, it's and listening to him, I think that it's important that government engages these traders, and I know that there's going to be a meeting between the Ministry of Finance,
there is?
and the stakeholders today. So I can only assure our listeners and our viewers this morning that this is a listening government, clearly, and these are facts. No new taxes have been increased. No import duties have been passed since His Excellency the President's government took over from January 2017. Indeed, there has been removal of some taxes and reduction of some taxes. So ordinarily, you would expect that if everything was being done in accordance with what the rules are, there wouldn't be increases in taxes. Of course, with the removal of the human element in the computation of the appropriate taxes that are due, some people are beginning to pay the right taxes, save that the complaint is that over the past few weeks, some computation is leading to some increases that were not anticipated or that did not expect. And it's a legitimate cry. Like I said, I am aware that government is meeting with the stakeholders today, and I'm sure that all the issues will be resolved so that we can have some harmonious implementation of these things. Because you and I know that import duties and taxes are the mainstay of every economy. If government is going to be able to provide the social services that you and I need, that our viewers need, that the people of Ghana needs, if we're going to be able to provide the roads, the hospitals that we need, government can only do that when they generate revenue. But in doing so, that should not be overburdensome on the Ghanaian people. And so engagements would continue, and I'm sure that by the close of day or in the coming days, we will see some response, positive response for that matter in that regard, so that people can go about their businesses without any hassle.
I've had some engagements too before, because I've had some friends who are freight forwarders, operate in the sector, etc., and they serve as the freight forwarders or the representatives of various importers.
Absolutely.
Now, the concern has been that we don't seem to be getting the computations right. But beyond that is the fact that there seem to be some delays, even though if the delays were not present, we would have had the expedites processes being witnessed, because then it saves the freight forwarders all the hassle of going up and down and all. How far can we undertake such engagement in such a way that there's a certain win-win situation for all parties? Government also knows that the revenue will come in, and they are also comfortable.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, it all boils down to people's, response to change. Because, when we were having our engagements as a committee of communications, the feedback that we got was a resistance from even GRA officials, customs officials in,
the system.
Absolutely, because you and I know what happens, in the clearance of goods, in the valuation and all that. But you see, this is for the common good of all of us. We ought to up our patriotism bit, game a little bit, because it is not like these funds are being generated into private pockets. It's going into the national kitty for development purposes. And so we all ought to, contribute our bit to ensure the success of this program. Because if we all agree that that's the way to go, that's the only mechanism that would ensure that the needed revenue comes in and is not diverted into private pockets, then I guess that we all have to support to make sure that that happens. There's only an extent to which government can go, but government needs the support of the stakeholders to ensure the successful rollout. And the more we do that, the less the problems become. And if there are genuine, legitimate problems that then arise from the implementation, that can be identified easily and resolved. But if there's resistance, people are essentially sabotaging the implementation of these things, then it puts government and all of us in a difficult situation. So I would appeal to all the stakeholders concerned that, this is the only country that we have. We all have to contribute our quota in making it a better place for ourselves, our children, and generations yet unborn. And so we should demonstrate some commitment to ensure that some of these things are done that would ultimately benefit we ourselves.
Well, it also means that the right taxes will have to be paid by the related agencies. Absolutely. And those who tend to import and export. A large chunk of the problem could also be that maybe the players within the middle to downstream level don't get the kickbacks that they usually would be getting. As far as that is,
don't put me on the spot. I didn't want to make a comment.
That would be perhaps veering into the realm of speculation, though. Yeah. So we'll move ourselves onward from there. The Bank of Ghana says it puts out the report of a new survey, which is indicating that the average base rate of commercial banks has dropped to 24.5% as of February 28, 2018. And this represents a drop of some 1.1% when compared to the average rate at the end of January 2018. And we know what the policy rate of the Bank of Ghana is, what the concerns have been about the commercial banks also not trading same, or perhaps almost close to that rate. Well, somebody will argue, and I've heard some social media comments indicating that that really is not the rate at which the commercial banks are operating. They are operating between 30 and 28% still. I don't know where the Bank of Ghana may have gotten its data from.
Well, the base rate is the official rate that they charge, yes, save that they add some premium.
Yeah, true.
To it, and that's the lending rate that, ultimately they lend to people who go to access facilities from the banks. I mean, to be blunt, the rates are pretty much outrageous, because if the Bank of Ghana rate at which the Bank of Ghana lends to banks is relatively lower, then you expect that the base rate would, match that, by not a very wide margin. The disparity shouldn't be significant, unfortunately, And to be fair to the banks, I mean, in pricing their loans, several factors go into it, including non-performing assets and all that, and the ability to trace customers, because our addressing system has not been the best over the years. And I think that government recognizes that all these things, impact the cost of borrowing in this country, and so steps have been taken, some ongoing. Of course, the addressing system that has been implemented, still being rolled out, would go a long way to make the banks identify their customers and know where they reside and that in itself would impact the final cost of borrowing. The national ID system implementation, when it finally gets rolled out, because you know that there was some delay because some amendment to the legislation had to be worked on. That has been passed. I believe that the final touches are being put to commence the rollout of the national ID system. All that would culminate in some significant reduction in our rates. But ultimately, I think that the banks themselves, you know, ought to be a bit more proactive. That, you know, in an economy where your interest rate is practically a third, 30%, chances of default are high, as opposed to if the rates come low. Now that treasury bills and all that is trending downwards, it's a region of some 10-12%. It's about time that they reduce their interest rates. And the call that the president made on the banks a couple of weeks ago, I think, was legitimate. And I think that they need to take it up seriously, and because they play a significant contribution in our economic development and processes. So if cost of credit, which in other jurisdictions does not exceed even 5%, you know.
In the more developed countries, yeah, sometimes barely 1%.
Absolutely. We're paying 30% here. Clearly, it's not a right way to go.
One of the approaches made by my bank and for a personal loan, were giving it to me at 28%. I didn't find it enticing though. I thought it was outrageous.
Yeah,
and I did the computations. By the time I finished paying 5 years, I would have paid 300%.
Absolutely. And
that's crazy.
That's it is.
How compelling can the Bank of Ghana be? Or perhaps, let's say, how engaging can the Bank of Ghana be with the commercial banks for the rate to be properly realigned?
It's pretty tough, you know, because it's a regulated industry, but it's not a controlled industry. I mean, you can't control the rate of interest that they charge on the loans that they give out, because the expectation will be that they will take at a cost and then lend, you know, and then they will make a margin in there to fund their operations. Bear in mind that the Bank of Ghana also holds them for the non-performing assets as well. When the banking supervision department goes around to inspect the books of the banks, they are taxed to go out there and recover, because ordinarily they will make provisions in their accounts, and the Bank of Ghana usually gets them to write some of these things back. And so I guess that maybe, you know, of course, ordinarily the expectation would have been that with the proliferation of banks, competition would have, you know, helped in driving down the rates. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. And now the thinking is that to enable them to do some high-ticket transactions. And if you recall the finance minister's speech that he delivered at the Ali Muhammad Memorial Lecture, he clearly suggested that, look, it's important that Ghanaian banks consolidate to enable them to take advantage of some high-ticket but low-risk transactions. And he cited the cocoa syndication, where 1.8 billion, practically risk-free, is done annually by foreign banks. But Ghanaian banks don't have the capacity to participate in that kind of transaction, and so because of their balance sheet sizes. But that if they consolidated, then they would be in a much more, you know, stronger position to participate in some of these things. So question really then would be as to whether consolidation is what is going to lead to the decrease in prices, or rather is the increase in the banks that would have been expected to generate competition to drive down interest rates. You know, so I guess that it's a commercial decision, but I
All
believe
right.
that
We'll back and discuss this.
Yeah, sure.
There's an ongoing issue about the boss saga, and for which we're just getting some news from the news wires that COPEC, that's the Chamber for Petroleum Consumers, I believe, it's headed by his Executive Secretary, Dan Kanamwa. He's on the line. They said they're going to have a press conference today. Good morning to you, Mr. Dan Kanamwa.
Good morning, Roland. Good morning to your viewers.
Okay, and according to what we're getting on the news wires, your agency is going to have a press conference. What exactly about, please?
Roland, let me say thank you once again. We had issued a small publication last Monday requesting for some investigations to be carried out at BOST over some transaction that, in our minds, didn't make either economic or legal sense to engage in. We've been insulted variously and severally. We've watched from the sidelines as BOST throws out a lot of untruth. We've also had to delve deeper into the subject matter, ask a lot more salient questions, and the answers that we have so far received are not only intriguing but will be shocking to Ghanaians. Indeed, you could just describe the entire transaction as a handshake deal, and those are the facts we'll be seeking to put out today. It doesn't end there. We are also mindful of the fact that very senior persons, including Akufo-Addo, have already requested that we do not end this with we say, they say, and it ends there. We should proceed to the special prosecutor to also put in some investigation, and where prosecutions are necessary, go ahead with things. So it's two things. We will be discussing further truth as we found. We'll be discussing our petition further with the special prosecutor, which we're hoping that by close of day he should have received.
Well, the concern that has been raised by perhaps those who have been asking the questions, we can classify them as critics, especially with what you have put out, your chamber has put out, and the fact that you haven't put out enough evidence to suggest that the transactions undertaken by BOSS and its management, based on the decisions that were reached, were not unusual in the industry. And also anything untoward had happened, just short of what you have put out being speculative.
Indeed, Roland, we would disagree with those who think it was speculation. What were the issues we put out last week? We were categorical that some crude had been sold. We put a figure of 1.8 million barrels. BOSS contests the figure and says, oh, we have sold, but we sold 942,000 barrels. The substance of selling is not lost. It is the figure in contention. We ourselves of the esteemed opinion that the 1.8 million was not a cooked figure, and that BOSS had actually transacted the remaining from the 942,000 barrels to another company called AOC. Now, the trading terms of that arrangement, we are also interested. Was it a giveaway as happened with the BB Energy transaction? And so we are not abandoning the 1.8 million barrels figure we put out there. We need accountability for the entire stretch. Again, we raise the issue of legality, whether BB Energy has a legal person to be able to transact the way it transacted. If you recall, Mr. Akufo-Addo was quite categorical that the documents he has available to him indicate that as of December 2017, 3 months after the sale had been occasioned, BB Energy was now requesting for licensing from the NPA to undertake the transaction, which the NPA declined. Again, we raised issue with figures that they had discounted by some $2. Boss has not been able to deny, denounce, and argue that it wasn't discounted, but it was sold for full market value. They accept, except to say on Friday that they should have sold at -$5, but because of their relationship with BB Energy decided to take it at -$2. We are saying BB Energy is not for that Christmas. Indeed, all the inconsistencies, all the infactuals have been put out by Boss. Nothing of what we originally raised has been departed from. That crude had been sold. That is true. They contest the numbers. Again, we will probe further for the 1.8 million barrels to be accounted for properly. As to whether the transaction was grounded in firm legal principles, that again, Boss is not able to deny, except to come telling all of us on Friday that BB Energy doesn't need a license to undertake an in-tank crude transaction, which is a lie anyway, which is not grounded in law, which we are quite certain that the special prosecutor will find intriguing. That you are not selling, you said you are selling free on board. The product is on board which vessel? The product is at the oil refinery, in tank. It's not even ex-tank. To talk about free on board. And so if there are inconsistencies, look at how many times Boss has had to shift position on this matter. Initially, the argument was that they had to sell because after 8 months, crude was going to go bad.
Okay.
We deflate the argument that crude can stay for 200 years. The Americans normally do 10 years before they even release crude. Then they turn around to say that they have to sell because they needed money. Roland, our press briefing would indicate how the monies have been paid and how the monies are being paid. Clearly, it wasn't even about money. It wasn't even about money.
And you intend petitioning the special prosecutor, right?
Indeed. All these questions will be sent directly to the special prosecutor so that Boss could answer whatever question the special prosecutor has of us. We will provide the answers appropriately and certainly. But as I speak to you, Roland, Boss has had to shift his own position on 3 different occasions, and all the inconsistencies only amount to an attempt just to throw light further in the eyes of the public.
Okay.
The insults we have received are quite unusual. Not because we put out a lie. We said crude had been sold. Indeed, crude had been sold. We put out 1.8. They said 942. But indeed, the total volume at all is 1.8. They admit they traded some of with another trader called AOC. Under what terms we are interested?
All right.
And so we are not
That's
departing the 1.8. We are not departing the...
Mr. Samuel, you are having a press conference where? What time?
At the offices of in Tema at 10 on the dot.
Oh, that's far off, near the Tema Harbour area. That's far.
Yes, near the Harbour area.
You don't want us to come cover it live, right? Or you want us to chase the news?
Just for Ghanaians to know the truth, if you could take this live, I'm sure they would appreciate the issues much deeper than all the concocted positions that Boss has engaged in over the past. We issued one publication. They have danced around
That'll be. That's the executive secretary of COPEC. He's the president for COPEC, and COPEC is the chamber for petroleum consumers. You want to have some responses to what he said?
Well, I mean...
A number of things have been said on the subject.
I find it rather intriguing that you want a matter investigated. Clearly, to my mind, you want answers to questions that you've posed, which is fine. And nobody is going to shy away from a call on the special prosecutor to investigate any allegations of this nature. But if you put these same things that you want answers to out there as if to say that they are conclusive, then what else do you want investigated? What? Because according to you, you who have conducted your investigation, and what it is that you put out there is fact, cast in stone. So who should investigate what again? You see, think tanks are useful. and they play a critical
You're
role.
saying think tanks
Are
in
useful.
this regard?
Yes, they are very, very useful. And they play a critical role in our governance structure. But it is very important that some of these things are put in their right perspective and context, so the issues are addressed by appropriate authorities and agencies, rather than throw out matters that generate speculation and for if you like, the politics, political gymnastics to be put out there. I don't think it helps, because look, when the allegations were put out there, I have read the response that BOST issued, and I do not find any inconsistencies in the response that BOST issued. But of course, if the intent is to submit these matters to the special prosecutor, we have to go through a press conference before the matter is submitted to the special prosecutor to conduct an investigation into.
Well, thank you very much. So we've had in the studio the Member of Parliament for Sekondi, Andrew Ejapamesa. He's also a legal practitioner. So have a good morning, sir. Tomorrow you're going to Parliament, aren't you?
Yes.
All right. And you're up on Friday?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,